is it such a problem to say that you don't like Benson Boone's music? Because based on how his fans react to hearing that, you would think they said the most heinous shit ever.
Let me explain to you why the media is hating on Benson Boone so much. This video is for those who love Benson Boone or like Benson Boone, or you just don't mind him because you have a life and you touch grass pretty often.
My For You page is all sorts of messed up, because what do you mean you don't like Benson Boone? What do you mean? The Benson hate is so forced.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that my music preference was wrong. Because I feel like the music he makes, it's a lot of like store music, if that makes sense. Like you're gonna hear
Moonbeam ice cream, taking off your blue jeans, dancing at the movies, cause it feels so.
Please stay. I want you, I need you, oh God.
Alright, I'm just gonna cut to the chase here because I can already hear your little fingers typing in the comments. Kayla, who's Benson Boone? I don't know who that is. I don't know what you're talking about. Why would you make a video about this? And yes, you do. You do know who he is. And he got his start on American Idol in 2021 before withdrawing from the competition and gaining quite the following on social media. Since then, he's had several radio hits, most notably Beautiful Things, which he became well known for performing during the height of award season after he was nominated for Best New Artist. He also recently performed at Coachella and is on the cusp of headlining a tour that is apparently sold out. He also backflips a lot, which is a thing that I can also totally do. I'm just not going to show you, but I can totally do that too. I became aware of Benson at the same time that everyone else did, and I mostly thought his music was harmless and definitely not my thing, but it seems that he is controversial and polarizing despite the fact that his music is very safe, and I am fascinated by that. I think part of it comes from the fact that he's sort of hard to put in a box. We'll talk about this more in a minute, but male pop stars are few and far between these days, and so he's a bit hard to categorize in that way. Some of his more acoustic stuff reminds me of like Noah Kahan or Ed Sheeran. His over-the-top Freddie Mercury-inspired performance style has prompted some people to make the dreaded Brendan Urie comparison. But of course, his flashy fashion and audience of dedicated teenage girls has invoked the name So Benson Boone appeared around the time that Harry Styles went into hiding post Don't Worry Darling. I'm not saying that's related, I'm just saying that's a fact. And obviously, the comparisons between the two make sense, and I say this as someone who is a Harry fan. Like, I have been to Harry's house, do not get me wrong. Harry Styles seemingly laid the blueprint for what a modern-day male pop star could be, with his eccentric fashion choices, upbeat funk-inspired pop music, and flamboyant command of the stage. Of course, he got plenty of flack for quote-unquote queer-baiting because he embraced this sort of feminine fashion despite not actually identifying as queer himself, which is a problematic line of thinking in its own right, in my opinion, because assuming a person's sexuality is weird, and queer-baiting is a term originally meant for the marketing of fictional characters, but I digress. Anyway, to me it seems like the starting point for the ongoing Benson Boone backlash, and yes, I do mean backlash because it seems as though he is the punchline of everybody's joke these days, is that he is almost Harry Styles, but not quite there yet. I just think that's really interesting because right now I think that pop music is a women's game, and let's be real, in some ways it always has been, but there used to be more of a space carved out for the male pop stars of the world, and I just feel like that's not as frequent of a phenomenon now. We had boy bands like One Direction and Brockhampton, solo acts like Ed Sheeran and Justin Bieber, and after launching his solo career, Harry Styles was absolutely inescapable, even winning Album of the Year for his project Harry's House at the 2023 Grammy Awards. And since then, I always see people asking where all of the male pop stars are now. Where did they go? What happened to them? And maybe this is a cringe opinion that I hold, especially with everything going on right now, but it seems like everyone is just really mean to the ones we do currently have, so why would anyone else even bother putting themselves out there in that way?
Moonbeam ice cream, taking off your blue jeans, dancing at the movies, cause it feels so mystical, magical, oh baby, cause once you know, my love is so mystical, magical, oh baby, cause once you know.
And That is not a bad opinion to have. I think it's fine to feel that way. But what struck me about all of the backlash to the release of this song was a TikTok that Benson Boone made around the time that it started going viral. I can't play the music for copyright, but it says, "If you hate me or my music, at least have a good reason for it." I just read a comment that said, "I don't even know why I hate Benson Boone, but it feels right." Like, what? How am I supposed to improve after reading that? At least say something valid like he low-key just flips everywhere, can he even do anything else? Or I just don't like his songs even though I'm basing my opinion off the only one that I've heard over and over, super valid. I'm like, yeah, I kind of understand that. I resonated with it so deeply that it sort of made me reevaluate my own approach to hating. I've always said that you're allowed to dislike people's music based solely off the fact that you don't vibe with it that much, and I've also said it's okay to just dislike a person's vibe or their aesthetic without having a morally righteous or superior reason to do so, and I do feel like that's a healthier alternative to deeming people problematic as an excuse to dislike them. But I look at this TikTok and I get exactly where he's coming from. Obviously, creators experience this on a much smaller scale than artists do, but there are commenters who have told me that they just don't like my videos, or that they find me annoying, or that they don't like my vibe, and I know that's a fact of life, especially when you volunteer to put yourself out there in such a public way on the internet, but yeah, man, if you're gonna hate, I guess it's good to have just some semblance of logic, because without it, I feel like the internet is just becoming a way meaner place in the name of good faith critique. And look, I'm gonna be so for real, I'm not saying that means that Benson Boone is above any kind of critique. That's not what I'm saying at all, actually. I just feel like we pick and choose here on the internet who is worth collectively receiving all of our wrath and ire when we're mad about like very specific things and systems, but we target it all at like certain people. For example, you may argue that Benson's style is too derivative of other artists that we've talked about here, and that because he is a conventionally attractive white man, he's been able to leverage his social media platform to get a lot more attention than artists trying to make it out there who are more unique or even perhaps more deserving. That's a legitimate concern that I think is defendable enough. Or the fact that Benson is currently embracing a lot of patriotic imagery in his new American Heart album era, and when pressed about that in an interview with Rolling Stone, his explanation for that was, people think if you have one or two views that are on the left or right side, that you have to be on the left or on the right. And I don't think that's how it is. He does not want to make it clear that calling his album American Heart isn't meant to drag him into any culture wars. It's not political at all, he says. It's more of a personal thing. It's just me. American Heart is my heart, and it's not my heart because it's American. It's my heart because I'm Benson Boone. Now that statement doesn't sound like a whole lot of anything, because he's not actually saying anything, and I fear that we're all putting ourselves in this perpetual negative feedback loop where artists are afraid of saying anything of meaning or weight and offending people, and it's like making art worse, and it's also making commentary worse. Damn, you thought this was gonna just be a video about why people don't like Benson Boone? Well, it's kinda that, but it's also a meta-commentary on the nature of commentary culture. Fair warning, this next clip in discussion probably feels like it's going to come out of left field, but stick with me for a sec. Let me cook, as the kids say.
I've come to realize something. Everything's kind of boring now. And I don't mean the, throw a tennis ball at the wall, twiddle your thumbs type of boring. It's quite literally the opposite somehow. Boredom used to be like, oh man, there's nothing to do. But I honestly cannot remember the last time I felt like that. The traditional feeling of boredom has been replaced by this like overwhelming feeling of there being like too many things to do. But at the same time, none of the things we're doing to fill the time are like enjoyable or personally fulfilling whatsoever.
So first off, I am not trying to shade Curtis Connor or anyone who does this type of commentary. I actually like Curtis's videos quite a bit, but as someone in the YouTube commentary space, I've noticed that a lot of us have gotten into this habit of pointing out why everything is bad now. We all have to have some kind of negative slant or critique in our videos, and that makes sense because less people want to listen to us talk about the stuff we like. It's just a fact. And because of that, we pick these topics that focus on the negative aspect of something. In this video, he talks about why everything is so boring now, the loss of color and innovative design in things like logos or television and movies. And this is a position that is rather agreeable to everyone, And it's fun, it's entertaining, it's almost like an observational stand-up comedy routine just in a commentary video format. People will watch and go, yeah, everything is boring now. And while there is research and informative takes present in the video, nothing about this commentary is provocative. And you know, somebody like Curtis Connor is doing a very different thing than like actual cultural critics. Curtis Connor, again, is more of a comedian, I'd say. But because his style of commentary is so accessible and generally well liked, and it gets rewarded not only by people in his comment section, but also the YouTube algorithm, I feel like all cultural critique is sort of morphing into the same thing. And that's why when it comes to these big pop culture figures like Benson Boone or whoever's trendy right now, if it's not commentary or a take that's coming from an explicitly right-wing lens that is often steeped in like misogyny, homophobia, or some other general bigotry, then it's this amorphous style of hating where people can't actually critique what they don't like about something because everyone else is afraid to explicitly critique what they don't like about that thing. And so that's how you get like, ah ha ha, isn't this guy kinda weird? Why is he doing that? Why does he sound like that? I don't like it. I truly think that hating is a lost art. Like, it definitely has its time and place, especially in the world of pop culture and critique. But it's done so poorly now that, like, you're actually making me feel bad for Benson Boone, who seems like he is actively looking for feedback and ways to improve so that people like him more. And the world is just giving him nothing to work with. And there is something deeply and profoundly sad about that to me. I just feel like everyone wants to talk, but no one wants to have an actual opinion. I feel as though a lot of mainstream artists are so fearful of being misinterpreted or wrong about what they're saying and are so mindful of the fact that no matter what they say, some people just aren't going to like them no matter what. And not only do they not want those people to be vindicated, but they also don't want to sway more people over to that side. So all of the art is becoming more palatable and safe and more reliant on trendy aesthetics over meaning, and then the commentators viewing this from an outside perspective are also just making safe observations because they don't want to be wrong either. They want to do cultural critique in the safest way possible. We're all afraid of hearing each other's real opinions about things for fear of retribution from 19-year-olds with thousands of TikTok followers who have never had to be in community with people they don't like. And so all commentary comes to this crossroads of either I'm going to say something so inoffensive that it barely registers as an opinion, or I don't want there to be any misinterpretation of a nuanced and mature opinion that I have, and so instead of bothering to articulate the system or person that I actually want to critique, I am going to resort to using schoolyard playground insults. I truly believe that hearing Fran Lebowitz talk about anything would put some of these TikTok kids into straight up cardiac arrest.
There used to be this idea that adults dress differently than children, all right? So that is very largely not true anymore, especially with men. I would prefer not to see, 50-year-old men in shorts. Okay, if you want to see a 50-year-old man in shorts, that should be your personal choice. That should not be in general. When you do see men that are well-dressed, you notice them too much, and that's because it's rare.
Ultimately, my opinion on Benson Boone is that he's a young kid with a decent voice, making music for young girls, trying his best to do his own thing, even though his own thing is what a lot of other people have already done. And I think that hating on that is fine, as long as you're not resorting to, again, schoolyard insults and calling him a stinky, no-good butt-licker or something, you know? I find that discussion of pop culture events and people is rather limiting and juvenile nowadays, and I think it's frustrating, and it's shortchanging our ability to think critically about things and engage with one another in a meaningful way. And furthermore, damn, so Benson Boone's flips, they're weird as hell. Why does he do so many flips? That's crazy. He should do, 3 less flips. Look at his pants, bro. Those pants they're weird. Look at his pants. Why is he wearing pants like that? I don't know. He's always just giving me, a weird vibe. I don't really know why. I don't need to elaborate beyond that. He's just always giving me a weird vibe. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Go check out this video if you haven't seen it yet, because it's good, and I think you'll like it. That's all for now. See you next time. Bye.